folks, this is Jim Hanson, your East Coast Warlord.
And I'm Kurt Schlichter, your West Coast Warlord, and wow! The other day, holy cow, Tucker came out and said, I made a deal with Elon Musk. I made a deal to take the show on the road to Twitter.
But then Elon came out and said, no, we didn't make a deal, and I think you had a good reason why.
Well, I think that's because Tucker doesn't want to give Fox's many lawyers any excuse to say he breached the contract. So they don't have a deal, but he has an intent.
There you go.
I don't think that counts as a breach, but who knows?
I like his intent, I like his motive, and I'm sure gonna like the damage he's gonna do to mainstream media putting the show on Twitter.
The way he portrayed it in his 2-minute video was not as, hey, take that, Fox. It was, this is a new kind of media.
You're making a good point that the idea that he's not just doing this, because what does he care about Fox at this point? He knows he's got control. And now, with the audience that Twitter has, the addressable audience is bigger than Fox has ever had. He's not talking to just a potential 3.5 million people. There are 300 million Twitter users, and he can talk to every single one of them. Gatekeeping was their ability to control the narratives and the story and the entire arena. And now, anybody who's got, like you and me do, a couple of cameras, few microphones, and a bad attitude can bring information to the people.
Andrew Breitbart came along, and he kind of knocked down the walls.
Yep.
He basically said, hey, we're going to go around you, and this is the ultimate realization of that dream.
Yeah, it's an end around. I mean, wherever they were, we can go directly now, and there's an audience out there that we know, a lot of the Fox Nation audience, Fox's streaming thing, the only reason they were there was so they could get Tucker's extra content. Now, they can go to a place where not only he's going to be, but that's going to be a draw for so many more people who are quality creators who don't want to have to play the network game.
What Elon did, Elon was a visionary. Elon saw Twitter, which was basically a text message service between a lot of people. And he said, no. It's a communication conduit for all forms of media, including long-form video. And I think that's what's coming next. Who knows? We may end up there.
Well, we're already there. I think the one thing we can do is we can claim credit for drawing Tucker to Twitter, because the Warlords started on Twitter. He must have seen it and said, you know what? If there is badass content like that, this must be the place to be. So welcome to the game, Tucker.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're one of our kind of guys. And hey, we've both been on his show. I got a suggestion. You need national security people to talk to and culture people like us. We're not Fox News contributors, and we're sitting right here. The Warlords should be your go-to people, Tucker.
Look, I think that's beyond any kind of question. I think when you're looking for national security, cultural, and how to be a man information, this is a source. Baby, it's us.
You're going to ask a warlord.
You got to ask a warlord. Holy cow, that ought to be one of our segments.
That will be.
Ask a warlord.
Elon has said he's going to have interactive spaces. Is now this audio conferencing thing, where people can call in like a telephone conference. But what we need now is the full Zoom effect, where you've got people there and we can invite people into our conversation and they can ask a warlord and we will dispense meaningful advice.
Well, look, people can sure use it because there are a lot of mixed up losers out there, Warlord Jim. Mm-hmm. There really are, and they are dying for our assistance.
We're not just stone-cold, steely-eyed killers, ramp-jumping, door-kicking, slim-waisted, barrel-chested, Dacron-coated, titanium-filled commie killers. We also are sweetness and light with the milk of human kindness flowing through our bones as we go ahead and help those who need it.
I think the message of the Warlords is caring.
Caring. I've seen that hashtag caring. Somewhere. Where have I seen it?
Somewhere. Somebody's done that. I don't know. It's out there. It's on the street. Word on the street. By the way, tangent. That's, of course, the classic Starsky and Hutch Huggy Bear quote. I once saw Antonio Farragas running around Central Courthouse in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah. Him and Avenatti are my two big, close encounters of the pseudo-celebrity kinds.
Is Avenatti in jail?
Avenatti is so in jail.
Yes, that's one of those good things.
Homeboy, maybe he can go trans and share a shack up with Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh, okay. Wait,
The weird
is
voice
she in jail?
girl with the black.
That's right.
She's about to go to jail.
Did she turn into a dude, or is she just a girl who changed her voice?
There's a lot of weirdness going there, but I got to hand it to her boyfriend's alpha game. She'd be like, text him, "You are the sun and my moon, and I revolve around you in an orbit of love," and he'll type back, "Yeah, cool."
Right, as he's with his side piece, right?
I know. It's like, and she's like, "Oh, he texted back." He's like, "Who's this? New phone? Who dis?"
Maybe that's the other thing. This whole Twitter TV or whatever it's going to be. I mean, Elon may call it X, he may call it whatever. But the thing is, it's now going to be a thing. And I'm betting he goes for on stream or on TV streaming. So there'll be an app, you know what I mean? And there'll
there's
be
going to
Twitter TV. Yeah.
See, he's done a Bezos. Because remember, Jeff Bezos started out, he said, well, I'll just sell books by mail.
Right.
And then he figured out, wait a minute, I can sell shoes and pantyhose by mail. Hey, wait a minute, I've got these servers, I can sell those too. You start with one idea.
Yep.
And then you grow. He understands. Like Bezos understood at a very basic level. He was not in the book business.
Right.
He was not even in the products business. He was in the logistics business. Get the order and fulfill it. Twitter is not in the messaging business. It's in the communications business, and the entire spectrum of communication is fair game. I think this $44 billion he spent is maybe one of the best investments anyone's ever made, ever.
What, 300 million times 600 million eyeballs, right? Plus all the historical data on what these people talk about, think, and do. Hugely valuable, which he can license. Now when people want to train AI, they can't just use Twitter stuff for free. He's like, no. I paid money for this. Yeah, and he's got all those people's attention, which advertisers like, which everybody likes. Now he's got one of the top draw in news and information on the planet. It's Tucker Carlson. So he's starting with, everything. Jeff Bezos had to sell books at a discount for years before he got any customers at all. Tucker now gives Elon the #1 draw in the business, and he's going to take advantage of that.
Look, I think we are going to see Twitter become a one-stop shop for all your communications need. The idea of social media is going to completely change. It's not going to be little silos directed to little groups, though it can. Mm-hmm. It's also, just because you can still buy books on Amazon, which you should.
There's all kinds of good books on Amazon. Well, here's the other thing that Elon has teased is the AI component. Now, one of the things that we're working on to make sure is that creators like us who put their content on Twitter don't have it throttled because of their niceness algorithm, and this idea that if a bunch of people complain about your content, no one should see it. That's wrong. The idea now, and what Elon, I hope, is doing, and I think he has to if he's got Tucker, is making people and users the choosers. Freedom of choice, not this limiting reach. Give the app and the user the capability to pull the content they want, and then stop worrying about who's offended. If they've got control, there's nothing to complain about.
Well, that's true, and it doesn't work to limit reach. In a messaging service where it's just about essentially text messaging each other, yeah, you can live with that. It's annoying, but it doesn't eliminate the incentives completely. If you're spending money and spending time to create product, and Twitter's taking a piece of the money that comes from it, it makes no sense to throttle it based on the arbitrary whims of some gender studies major who got a job at Twitter in some high-rise in San Francisco.
And the rest of the blue-haired, pierced-nosed, non-binary Forrestal freak contingent who are going to complain. They're going to complain no matter what. You cannot satisfy them, so stop trying.
Well,
Give them control and tell them to shut up.
And frankly, YouTube burns so many people.
Yeah.
That everybody understands, before I make a deal with you, you've got to be clear that I'm not going to get throttled, I'm not going to get demonetized, we're not going to have any of this stuff happen, or we're gonna find a different way. Twitter has the advantage of being big.
And they've got the
being
advantage
present.
of Elon has started from the idea of free speech. We got to get him off this
Yeah.
free speech, not reach thing, because that's the throttling, that's tone policing.
Yes.
But if you want creators on your platform, you tell them, as long as you're not violating the terms of service, and we'll be very clear what those are. These are the 7 words, like George Carlin said, that you can't say on Twitter. All right, and if you don't violate the terms of service, then your content should get the same promotion and distribution any other similar content with similar engagement gets. Let the users decide.
Exactly, that's the way to go. And of course, they'll have an incentive, because if you're not broadcasting something, you're not getting clicks.
Money talks, and that's how you do it. You got to get eyeballs on content, and you want creators to be able to grow. So let people, if you throttle stuff just because it made one group of people mad, there's another group of people who want to hear you and me calling Joe Biden an idiot. Because he is an idiot.
Well,
right? They need that. That's the right answer.
Well, we'll be talking a lot more about Joe Biden as the Warlords continue. But let me just say, it's a brave new world out there, and I'm excited. I'm excited about the opportunities.
You and me both. We'll be back with more Warlords after the break.
We are back on the Warlords. I'm West Coast Warlord Kurt Schlichter.
And I'm East Coast Warlord Jim Hanson. And we had some good news coming out of the Weaponization Committee, which, incidentally, great name, man. Representative Comer, who runs that, has been digging into the Biden corruption scandals. And there's so many, it's hard to keep track. He's got the money now, though. He followed the money. Go ahead and guess. How many Biden family members do you think have gotten paid?
It looks like about 20. I mean, if you're going to do all the connections, you have to have one of those conspiracy theories wall things with the yarn going
exactly.
from picture to
It's like
picture.
the guy from Sunny in Philadelphia doing his thing. But it's at least 9. And, some of them are so young they didn't want to name them. They're paying their kids to try and avoid this. The simplest crime that is already proven by evidence in public is that Hunter Biden and his associates and Joe Biden violated the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, which says that if you take money from foreigners and you go ahead and lobby the government and go ahead and get people meetings with government officials, you have to register and tell us you're doing that. Hunter didn't register. Nobody registered. They took money. Joe took meetings. Those are felonies.
Well, so far we've seen Hunter Biden smoking a lot of meth, cavorting with a lot of prostitutes, and buying a gun after lying on his gun form, and he has yet to be charged. So maybe I'm cynical, but to me it seems there's almost a 2-tier justice system, which means there's really no justice system at all.
Yeah, you got your class justice system, and then you've got your left-right justice system, and it's really good to be a Democrat criminal, especially one with, a father who's the vice or president. Now, here's the problem we have with actually charging Hunter. Statute of limitations is going to be gone on most of his FARA crimes and felonies. All right, so we may not get to charge Hunter. To be honest, I don't really care. All right, he's a degenerate, crackhead, junkie, whoremonger, and what he does doesn't bother me. Joe Biden, on the other hand, nothing's stopping the Republicans right now from charging Joe Biden and impeaching him. They may not get a conviction in the Senate, but they owe it to us to put him on trial.
Well, look, the stuff that's come out is extremely troubling, but not as troubling as George Santos ripping off $584 twice in unemployment benefits.
Is that what they got him? That's what they scarfed him up?
That's 2 of the charges.
Oh, my God.
$584 wire fraud. They also tried, this is beautiful. He overstated how much money he got from one of his companies on his disclosure forms. Not understated, Warlord Jim. Not minimized. He overstated how much he got.
Are they
and they want
doing,
to charge him for that.
They're doing like stretches to get to these crimes that a yoga guru on a mountaintop in India would not even attempt.
I know.
This is garbage.
Nadia Comaneci is saying, hey, I can't make that happen. Nadia
nice
Comaneci, Warlord Jim. There you go.
She got a 10. Well,
She got a 10.
Here's the fun part. They're not done yet. All right.
Oh, no.
Once you start pulling these threads, one of the things we did, and my company WorldStrat did an investigation of the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Okay, and we connected all the dots as to who was involved with that. When you start using the AI now to pull the threads and do the investigation of where the money flowed from and to, I'm sure we're not done finding out how wide the web of Biden corruption is.
Oh, it's only going to get wider and wider. Now, you mentioned statute of limitations, which, of course, didn't stop resurrecting that BS lawsuit in New York. I actually practice that kind of law. It's a joke.
Wasn't that was the Scarecrow was accusing Donald Trump of rape?
Yeah, if it was anybody not named Donald Trump, that never would have seen the inside of a courtroom. But there's special laws for the enemies of the regime. But here's the point. Hunter will walk on the statute of limitations for a lot of this stuff.
Okay,
fair enough. But remember what happened with Alger Hiss. Now, he didn't get convicted of spying for the communists because the statute of limitations ran. What they did is they called him in front of the House or the Senate, I forget which, and asked, "Are you a spy?" And he lied. And they got him for perjury.
That's how they got Billy Jeff Clinton.
Here's what you do. You go and have a special hearing out in, I don't know, some red state, Tulsa, Oklahoma. You go out to Oklahoma, have a special hearing there, and that's where you summon Hunter Biden.
Nice.
You summon him and see if he commits perjury in a red state.
And the thing is, you could ask him plenty of questions about Joe that he's going to want to lie about because Joe's dirty.
Yeah, you ask him, is it true these guys got paid off? And if if you've got evidence he did, he's got to say he did.
Yeah. He's got to explain that. Everybody wants to know what was 10% for the big guy.
Well,
that's a fun question.
Well, here's the other fun part. Do you have an argument that it's not a self-incrimination? They might not have a Fifth Amendment right if the statute of limitations is run.
So, and then, all right, now what they could make it a RICO because there's obviously a conspiracy. I don't know that changes the statute of limitations. But here's the point. There's so many ways to go after these bastards. Somebody better do it.
No, they ain't going to do it. They're not going to do it. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, look.
You're right.
We understand from painful observation that there is no bottom. You know, you 10 years ago I said, oh my gosh, if this information came out, it'd be the biggest scandal ever. No, the biggest scandal ever is George Santos and his, $1,200 crime scheme. No, they will ignore it. They just won't do it. They just won't treat it as a crime. Not in the regime media, not by the DOJ. They just won't do it. And half of the American political system, which controls more than half of the federal government, will be perfectly okay with it.
Well, can't we find a crime in a red state with an attorney general with a bad attitude? You know, Missouri, Louisiana, there's a bunch of states that are doing things.
Yeah.
Or your idea of getting him out in the sticks and forcing him to tell the truth or face the consequences in some place that isn't D.C.
Yeah, you do it in a venue where you're not going to get 93% Biden voters.
Ugh.
As we know, many in the Republican Party are well, I don't want to actually leave. I just, it's hard to go to Oklahoma. That's a lot of trouble. We'll just do it here, and then he'll get up and lie, and the DOJ will go, wah, wah. And even if it's a Republican DOJ, they're never going to convict him, ever.
You're making me sad, but I wish you were wrong. You know, and again, you're also making what is the number one argument for Donald Trump as our next president, is he is the only person, because as much good as I think DeSantis could do, I don't think he would empty buildings, burn them to the ground,
I don't know.
Crush the rubble and salt. I'd like to believe it, but we know Trump would. You know, at this point,
because Trump didn't do it last time. DeSantis has got quite a record.
Well,
but let me tell you, if Trump gets a nomination, I'm supporting them. And if you believe the polls, Trump's ahead of Biden now. Of course, believe the polls. Yeah, I'll believe the ABC Washington News poll that's telling me what they want me to hear.
Yeah, nobody's been right on a poll in a meaningful way in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
So I think that's meaningless. But I think At this point, I want to hear from the two candidates that matter that they will do something about this crime spree. And I'd like to hear from Kevin McCarthy that the Republicans in the House of Representatives would do something. They can impeach Biden, which gives you a chance to swear witnesses. It's going to be in D.C., but at least you get them sworn, and if they commit perjury, it's at least on record. So they got to do that at the minimum. They owe the American people.
Well, I agree, but whether it happens or not, is not a sure thing because our system is broken. They found out that, and here's what drives me crazy, and it is the presumption of normalcy. The idea that not only is everything all right, you better not say that everything's not all right, or you'll make it not all right. And a mutual friend of ours, I heard today, Jim Garrity. And I like Jim. He writes at National Review. He's on Washington Post. I like Jim. But what he said, he's talking to Hugh Hewitt, and he says, you go and say that no blue state jury can legitimately convict a conservative that's always biased and always prejudiced. You're halfway on to Kurt Schlichter's novels, which I appreciate the plug. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. We are halfway to my novels.
Right.
Because this is actually happening, and you don't solve a problem simply by going, well, I'm going to deny the problem because to admit the problem is to create the problem that already existed to provoke me into citing the problem and I feel like those robots on Star Trek that start smoking out their ears when
I was waiting for a whereas and a heretofore. You almost went lawyer on us there for a minute.
Uh-oh. Well, we don't want that.
And then I expect to get like a $500 a second text message bill from you because every time you start billing, I get a little nervous.
Ka-ching. That's the K-Dog way.
Well, let's do this. Paid. Let's make a call for action. And we may not get what we want, but I think we at least have to call. And let's get the Warlords audience involved in this. Impeach Joe Biden.
Impeach? Not that
Impeach
he'll know
Joe
it.
Biden.
Not that he'll know it.
I don't care.
Peaches? I like picking peaches. I eat them up while I'm watching Matlock. Every day at 2:30.
They owe us the headline, Joe Biden impeached for corruption. They owe us that. And if they don't give us that, I don't care. I don't care if Joe knows. I don't care if Hunter goes to jail. Impeach Joe Biden. All right, that's enough serious stuff because we got to have some fun. And we'll be back after the break with the Warlords culture on film.
On the Warlords, I'm Warlord Kurt, your West Coast Warlord.
And this is Jim Hanson, your East Coast Warlord. And we're just going to jump right in because this movie is fun. Predator.
Oh, it is amazing. I remember going and seeing it. I was still a college student. I think I graduated. It came out, and Predator blew my mind. It was just so action-packed and so much fun. And
the special effects, they jumped up a level. They won for visual effects, the Oscar that year. And they deserved it. Because they had a monster that was done the old-fashioned way. They actually had a monster suit, and they had that 7-foot-tall dude in the monster suit. But they did the thermal imaging. They did the invisible thing where he looked like he's moving, but you can't really see him, but you can see him, but you can't really see him. And it was beautiful, and it really created, it was a very anxiety-producing film. It was awesome. Just look at the cast of characters, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger, before he became a wizened commie weirdo, obsessed with climate change and having sex with dumpy maids. Bill Duke was in it. Carl Weathers. Shane Black was in it. Jesse the Body Ventura.
Shane Black, who wrote Lethal Weapon. He was actually a writer as well as an actor, yeah. It was like a quintessential fun 80s action movie.
And that's the thing about the 80s movies. They started what turned into now, the only movie that's close to that now is Guardians of the Galaxy. Where you've got that motley crew of characters, but all the smart-ass, snappy dialogue and, good lines. There was nothing but good lines in that, including my favorite of the whole thing, and the one that is the now quintessential for any monster alien-style movie is, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Oh, And their answer to everything is to like unload, final protective fire, including with a portable Gatling gun.
I wonder about that. I'm not sure that was as feasible as they made it look. And not like it did them any good, but it looked cool.
It certainly did. It was very high tech for the time. I mean, they had all the shiny new weapons. They had MP5s, which apparently keep firing after you get your arm blown off.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah,
rigor mortis on the trigger.
Yeah.
Trigger mortis, that's what it
trigger
was.
Mortis. Oh, trigger mortis.
Oh, that hurt a little bit.
And, it goes from kind of a big, giant warfare thing to one-on-one with our boy Arnold against the Predator in this kind of like rocky, alcove. Yeah. And it's just, you're on the edge of your seat, but the thing that gets me, Jim, is it's fun. Yeah. There's no stupid messages, no, nothing to distract you. You're in this little world for 2 hours, and it's really cool. And when you get out, you're like, yeah, that was awesome.
It was all fan service. I mean, they knew who they were making that movie for. They were making that movie for people who want to see stuff blown up. They want to see the jungle shredded by a minigun. They want Arnold to stab some things with knives that are incredibly, stupidly large. They want Jesse the Body Ventura spitting tobacco juice, saying this stuff will make you a sexual tyrannosaurus, just like me. That is what the 80s were so great about.
That movie was designed for 22-year-old Kurt.
And it inspired, that was just it. Everybody who looked at that said, well, I could be on that team. Give me a minigun, I'll get me that stupid Predator thing.
I want to be one of these guys. It was a movie for young men who drank their girlfriends who went, all the time, because there was some gross stuff in it. But yeah, it was just badass. And it made no apologies about being badass.
No.
And that's so important. You don't get that spirit today.
No. And I think another fun thing is they've got that. I mean, Carl Weathers and Arnold were head-to-head. Carl's the CIA guy and Arnold didn't want him on the mission and all that. But they've got that one meme now of the two of them air arm wrestling that now has gone, around the world a dozen or more times, and nobody really knows where it's from. That black guy, white guy arm wrestling is from Predator.
And did you notice these people? It's a very diverse group. You've got an American Indian, you got a black guy, you got a Latin woman, you got the Austrian oak. Nobody brings any of that up.
Well, and the funny thing was that's because it mirrored the way we experienced the military.
Yeah,
that was the thing.
It never came up.
No. You always saw that diversity in the military until it became a thing that they used to destroy unit cohesion. None of us cared. I didn't care if you were black, white, whatever. I had a black guy on my team when I was in Special Forces. He was 6'4", 220 pounds, ripped. He looked like the king in Zulu, the movie. You know what I'm saying? He had that. And you know what? The only reason I hated him, the only thing I ever held against him, two things. Number one, he was one of the best skiers I ever met. And when we went skiing, he would try to kill me by going down double black diamonds. The second thing was he couldn't play basketball. What's the point of being 6'4" and black if you can't even play basketball?
Way to explode the stereotypes.
Thank you. And we used to play ball all the time. And he was just, the other team would look at him and they'd be like, ooh. I'd be like, no, dude, you have no idea. He was dead weight.
Predator reveals a world that we used to live in, not only in the military, even out in normal society. By that time, the whole race thing was not a big deal. It actually became more of a deal as time went on, and certain race hustlers felt, hey, I can leverage this. If you could go back to a world of the 80s, minus the Soviet Union, obviously, you could do a lot worse, and we are doing a lot worse.
We're destroying it. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of reasons to go, and that's why we do this. That's one of the reasons that we look back on the 80s is because we, as the lead dogs of Gen X, which Kurt and I are, we are the head of the Gen X cohort. We were the last generation to fully recognize the American dream. And we're trying to show everybody that it doesn't have to end with Gen Z and the millennials. All right? They got screwed. We agree. We're trying to help you guys and the next generations get back to the greatness that we lived because it was awesome.
Oh my gosh, it was so cool.
Epic.
And Predator's so cool, and I highly recommend you go see it.
Now, also in the way we did this, we did the Top Gun and Maverick, we did Dune, and there is actually a new, and obviously Predator's been a long series. There's been a bunch of Predators.
There's one came out. They're even fighting Alien. I guess Title 42 was canceled in space or something.
I think that's racist.
That's
but here's the thing. There was one came out last year called Prey. And I looked at it, and we were visiting my daughter in London. She's like, I want to watch that. It's got this Indian girl, and she seems super cool. And it was a prequel to all the Predator series. It happened back in the Plains Indian days, and apparently the Predator's been coming for a while and doing their hunting game thing. Well, it actually didn't suck. I'm just going to tell you that much.
Wow.
It was fun. Go ahead and set aside they crapped on the French too. They actually made the French voyageurs, the canoe paddling frogs, the bad guys, which was fun.
Yeah.
And
it accurate.
was yeah, exactly. And they had the chick was a badass, which I'm prone to liking. I am a fan of female warriors, as my little pint-sized paratrooper wife will attest. Yep. So I would recommend, if you want to see a good, fun movie, Prey is worth seeing.
Oh, sounds good. Now I haven't seen it, but I am very interested in our Plains Indian friends. I just read a great book, Empire of the Summer Moon. Holy cow! What a vicious war that was in the Old West. And those guys, they were tough, but settlers were tough too. So
I think we won. I think if you
we did win.
I wasn't here personally, but.
Well, I had one of my two cavalry squadron balls at the Morongo Indian Casino, and I got up in my Stetson, and as I'm talking to everybody, I said, and I want to thank our hosts, the Morongo Indians, for not holding a grudge.
So there's Commander Salamander, who we are all aware of as a good Navy and Twitter guy, pointed out that there are no Native Americans. There are just earlier immigrants and later immigrants. And I'm sorry, true. They lost to the later immigrants, and that gets you casinos, and you need to move on after that.
Oh, and war heroes. I mean,
there you go.
Let me tell you, the American Indians, man, that's a fighting people.
But
if you got one on your team, you're going to be okay.
But you can't name a team after it, because that would somehow be wrong to memorialize their fighting spirit.
Yeah, because we always name things we always name our teams after things we don't respect and hold in reverence.
All right, well, hey, that's a good look at our culture segment. We walked you through a great film series and gave you something you can watch now. We'll be back after this to talk about how the DudeBros are screwing things up for everybody.
We're back on the Warlords. I'm West Coast Warlord Kurt Schlichter.
And this is the East Coast Warlord Jim Hanson. And we got to jerk a knot in a few tails here, as we are wont to do, because there's people who are screwing it up. There's a bunch of online, I call them DudeBros, who are these uber hardcore, I lift weights, seed oil is evil, and I don't know that they're wrong about everything, but what they're starting to do is give advice that is just misogynistic, stupid crap. I'm gonna read you one. It says, advice for young men. It's not cool to be in a relationship. If she's not adding to and improving the quality of your life and your work, get out of it. Long-term relationships are the root cause of most cases of wasted potential. Okay, now there's, like most things, there's a nugget of truth in there.
Yeah.
And a stupid idea.
Yeah, it's like it's like the seed in a cherry surrounded by idiocy. I would think that obtaining a long-term relationship with a quality person is kind of the end state that we're looking for.
That's winning the lottery for a dude, all right? When I was young, I ran wild and I was crazy and I almost killed myself in any number of ways. But when I achieved my actual potential, it took the tempering and supportive influence of a quality female to help. So
look,
that's far from something that's holding you back.
I understand a guy who says, hey, if she's not adding to your life, get rid of her. Well, there's a lot to be said by that. I have been ruthless in the past with dismissing women who did not add value to the Schlichter ooh. And I don't believe in treading water in a sea of failure. So if it isn't working, you need to either make it work or you need to cut bait and move on. That being said, it doesn't mean you cut bait even if it is working. That just seems weird.
And that's far from the end of the stupid advice. There's lots of things that, and it all ends up being this. If you're going to be this kind of uber dude, and I like the Chad meme, all right? The Chad meme is a great thing because Chad's a strong dude who's not a jackass. He's strong for the right reasons. These guys are weak and fronting as strong, and that's the worst of all of the traits of manhood. Is when you're empty and stupid and low and worthless inside, but you put up this front, and you shoot the right steroids and you lift the right stuff and you treat women like crap, and all of a sudden you're supposed to be someone we should emulate. No, not me. You and I, as warlords, have achieved the gold ticket. We are what people should emulate, but they've created this false idol for people to worship, and it's garbage.
They're so mistaken about who they are. They just don't understand. I see a lot of this as a lawyer, particularly among young lawyers who think being obnoxious and aggressive is going to get them what they want. Okay, I'm not going to be frightened of you or impressed by you or intimidated by you if you're not pointing an AK-47 at me, okay? All right, I was in the Army. I grew up with a mom who's a judge. Because, some dude who went to UCLA, then went to USC Law School, and now he's a fourth or fifth year lawyer who manages to intimidate a lot of people by yelling and shouting. It's not going to work on me.
Right.
And there are a couple times when I've said, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that ever. You don't get to.
You haven't earned the right.
Do it. And they're like, what? So no. But it's fake. They're not going to kick my ass.
No.
A gentleman, and I was very impressed by this construction. I don't remember where I got it. A gentleman is someone who never gives offense unless he intends to.
Ooh, I like that. And sometimes it's the right thing to do.
And sometimes he needs to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look, I don't get any pleasure in hurting people. Emotionally, physical, or otherwise. That being said, there are times when I will hurt people emotionally, physical, or otherwise. But I don't like it. I don't think it makes me a better person to do that. It makes me a better person to do what I have to do to achieve honorable ends. And sometimes that involves not being the most pleasant guy in the world. But I don't get off on it. It doesn't make me feel cool. But it makes them feel cool.
By the time I get to that point, I'm mad, and I'm just as mad because they forced me to act that way as I am about whatever they did to make that forcing function happen.
Yes.
I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to fight. I became a badass Green Beret to avoid fighting. That's the number one thing that Army Special Forces is about, is if there's a better way than actually getting in a brawl or a firefight to accomplish the mission, we're going to do it.
Yes.
And that to me is the way to approach life. Confrontation, argumentativeness and rudeness and belligerent activity are things that make me sick. And if you're doing them, do them too much and you'll see a side of me you won't like. Don't, and we can be friends.
Yeah, no problem. And Sun Tzu said the greatest victory is a battle you don't have to fight.
There you go.
And here's the little secret. And it applies to fights and to trials. You can lose a fight. You can lose a trial. I'm always looking for the angle where the worst I can get is what I've got now. For instance, people are like, you're a trial lawyer, but you don't like to go to trial. Yeah, that gives the other side a fair chance. I want to make motions. I want to exclude evidence. I want to negotiate a settlement that works for my client. If I go to trial, I'm depending on, 9 guys in New York City who may not like my client. I don't control that, but I absolutely control when I'm making motions, or when I'm moving to exclude evidence, or when I'm settling. I try and maintain control to get the outcome I want. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Hell, my wife and my car do that for me.
And I think there's the mentality now is that divergence is happening. There's a lot of successful. I like the based Chad mentality. I like what I see in that group. I like the people who've decided to take care of their lives, take care of their bodies, do those things. You know, get swole, do what you want to do, eat
It's
right.
great stuff. I work out 3 days a week, not because I want to be good, but it's good for me. It helps me. I'm not going to be a frail little old man. Like cracky. Now I'm Asa Hutchinson.
Right. And that is a positive step, I think, that is happening in the younger generations that I want to encourage. But it's going too far when you get to the ones, like you said, who think that the point is to be an aggressive jackhole who annoys everybody and bullies them, you know, and achieves what he wants by taking from others. And I cannot stand those kind of people. And I go out of my way when I see it happening to make their lives miserable, because you got to make an example of the people who are hurting people who don't deserve it. And I think right now there's people who think that is actually the goal, is to see how many bodies you can leave in your wake. And no, you are 100% wrong.
Well, a lot of these guys are going to fall on their face, and they're going to find out they're wrong the hard way. The alternative is to listen to the voice of experience. And no one is a louder, more profound voice of experience than your warlords. I'm West Coast Warlord Kurt Schlichter.
And I'm East Coast Warlord Jim Hanson. And hope you enjoyed the show. Follow us on Twitter @The Warlord Show. And we'll be back next week with more wisdom.